You're listening to Heritage Radio Network.
From kitchen chaos to well-oiled machines, get ready for newfangled technology and old-school know-how. Stories and a good bit of fun. I'm Simon, and this is Culinary Mechanic. Welcome back to the Culinary Mechanic. Joining me today is Guy Leggatt. Guy, welcome to the Culinary Mechanic.
Hey, thanks, Simon. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. I think it's been fun. You and I have been kind of on some of the same calls, and I thought that having you on to chat about the industry and see where things are and see where things can go is probably a great idea. So let's press on the gas, buddy. How'd you get into the industry?
Well, it's started when I was 15 years old. Someone knew somebody in a restaurant. I needed a job, and so I ended up washing dishes when I was 15 at this busy Italian restaurant in North Vancouver, where I grew up. And it was interesting. I kind of had a love-hate relationship with this job. It was like so busy. Like I would come in at 4 p.m. and there would be just like stacks of dishes from lunch and pots and pans from prep and like boxes of prawns to peel and calamari to clean. But for whatever reason, I had a good work ethic. I got in there, worked hard, worked my way up onto the line. And then I stuck around there for about 3 years. And the owner of the restaurant, these two brothers, Italian brothers, Mario and Antonio Corsi, I remember going to Antonio. I said, "Hey, I don't know if I want to spend another summer in a hot kitchen." And so I gave him my notice, and that was it. I went to university after high school, and I was going to go and get my business degree, and that lasted like a year. Didn't go very well, and ended up working at a hotel, Valley Parking Cars, and then I became a bellman. I actually eventually ran that department, and then I went on this kind of like random holiday where I drove down the West Coast through Washington, Oregon, into the Napa Valley. And I drove past the Culinary Institute of America in St. Helena. But just before that vacation at the hotel I was working at, one of these Italian brothers, Mario Corsi, just happened to be walking by the front door when I was there, and we hadn't seen each other in a number of years. And he was like, "Oh, hey, so great to see you, Guy. I still think you have, lots of talent, and you should be in restaurants. Like, why aren't you in restaurants?" And this was just before I went on that trip. Anyways, I knew a thing or two about the Culinary Institute of America. I was driving by it. I was like, "Holy crap, look at that." Pulled into the parking lot, walked inside, had a little tour, and said to myself as I walked out, "I think I want to be a chef." And when I got back to Vancouver, I enrolled in culinary school, and that's how I got started.
Oh man,
So I started
love
late. I was
that
like
building.
25 years old when I went to cooking school. So I was like, I had those 3 years in high school washing dishes and cooking online, but I hadn't. It was a pretty late start to go to cooking school for most people.
Yeah, but I think there's something to that, right? Like
Sure.
you have some intention at that point.
Yeah.
I mean, I've talked to folks who've gone to culinary school at 30 plus. Even one friend of mine went when he was 40,
Yeah.
and like he smoked people because he actually had already understood, like he understood how his limbs worked. I don't know, is the only way I can describe it, right? Like he already knew how to work a little bit,
Yeah.
you know? Um, But I think that just a couple years, like I cringe every time I see an 18-year-old go to culinary school, personally. Right? Like you guys, you don't know what you want yet. Like you're supposed to go fuck things up first and
Yeah.
then go to school. But it's just me. Um, well, cool. So culinary school, and then instantly you were a chef, right?
Yeah, that's right. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I did, like you said, I did really well at school. I was very focused on what I was doing now. Graduated with honors. I was lucky enough to have some friends who knew friends and knew chefs in Vancouver, and Vancouver was kind of popping off when it came to the culinary scene and restaurants. And I said to myself, "Hey, I got to work in the best restaurants in the city right now, and in the world. If I'm gonna do something with this." And so that's what I did. I apprenticed under a couple of really probably the considered the two best chefs in Vancouver at the time. Went and did a stage at Gordon Ramsay in London, um, and that was great because it kind of like was like a test for me, like where do I really fit in all this? Like, can I
Wow.
really run with the big dogs here? And I figured out that I could. And yeah, so I spent a lot of time in fine dining. Um, yeah, and then moved to Calgary. And then that sort of started a whole new chapter.
Wow. All right. So tell me how you get from there to where what you're doing now, and tell me a little bit about, what your own business is.
Yeah, so now I've got my own, uh, I guess it's a restaurant consulting company that I'm building. I've called it the Line Check Strategy, kind of an homage to my kitchen days, doing line checks. I never actually did a line check until I started working for a corporate restaurant company, but that sure taught me a lot. Um, yeah, so I worked for a corporate company. I almost got like a business degree working for them.
Yeah.
Learned how to make money in the restaurant business. After I'd had uh, some time learning about the culinary side of things, and then I actually got into the front of house. I took on a GM role, some regional restaurant role operations roles, and then I worked. My latest job was with Cisco, the food distributor, as kind of an in-house consultant for Cisco customers. So working with the corporate chef in the test kitchen, and did that for a couple of years, and kind of thought to myself, "Wow, like I've actually got quite a lot of knowledge, and there's a lot of people out there running restaurants that actually really need help." They don't have the experience that I have and haven't gone through the ups and downs that I have. And I think that, like, unless you do that and you really learn from it, it's hard to run a restaurant. Like, those margins are thin. There's so much going on all the time. Time is a big thing that operators and owners don't necessarily have a lot. And I really love helping people. Um, and I feel like I'm at a point in my career where I just wanted to share what I know. And if I could turn some restaurants around, like I'd done that in my career. Um, I really love turning hard situations around, and I've turned a couple of restaurants that weren't making money into really profitable operations, and I get a lot of satisfaction out of that. And so, yeah, I just kind of thought, hey, why don't I why don't I take a stab at this and see if I can just do it for myself? And it's been one of the best decisions I think I've ever made. And yeah, I work with a great group of consultants like yourself. Always learning still, and yeah, it's been a lot of fun so far, and looking forward to helping as many people as I can.
Awesome. You mentioned something that really got my brain going, and that is you work for some smaller restaurants, and then you work for a corporate restaurant, and for me, like thinking back all of a sudden, I'm like, huh, yeah, because sometimes like I find some of the smaller restaurants that I talk to, and I mean, I've even got one client, and they're doing pretty well. They're probably making close to $4 million a year, but they're still running like what I would describe as a mom and pop,
Yeah,
right? And so as I'm working with them, I'm putting in little pieces of that sort of some of the corporate tools that worked real well, and it's always real interesting to me that like there's such a difference, right? Like the corporations that they figured it out, and some people, you say the word corporate and it's like a dirty word, right?
yeah,
But for me, I'm like, you can call it a dirty word if you want, but that shit works. Like there's a
it does.
reason that there's like 30 restaurants, 100 restaurants, 1,000 restaurants, right? Like there's a
Yeah,
reason that standard that you can go to. I mean, the worst one, the best and worst example is McDonald's, right?
for
You
sure.
hire 17-year-old, 18-year-old kids, they're running that joint. Like the managers sometimes are like, man, I got socks older than those little fuckers. But it's like but they run a busy restaurant, right? To the standard, it's the same burger you get here, it's the same burger you get over there, and we know what that quality is.
Yeah,
Really great, but it's the same. And so I just love when like to hear another chef or former chef say, I worked over here and then I worked in corporate, and then like you start to realize, oh, there's really some things that you can employ. You don't have to employ all of them, right? You talk about a line check in a corporate restaurant. It's like I worked for one place and we had the typeface was so small on that line check that you had to like squint to be able to get it.
yeah,
But they wanted everything stuck in there, and they wanted like taste and texture and temperature, and is it all right? And I'm like, man, how about this? Taste the liquids. Are the
yeah,
liquids good? Yes. Great. Now move on to some of the other things, and then maybe you'll get to like the canned olives, because you probably don't need to taste the canned olives every day,
yeah,
right?
exactly.
And I used to say, I'm like, how about if you got like one station done really well versus filling out the form,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
So
for
I
sure.
don't know. It just
Yeah,
got into my brain a little bit of like how such a funny thing it is, like corporate restaurants versus non-corporate. One of the guys that you and I both know has said in the past, he's like, I've been in restaurants all my life, and then I got out and I started being a consultant, and that's when I realized, boy, the rest of the world is different than the world I was in. And he
yeah,
was in corporate restaurants, and it's
yeah,
and it's really true. Right?
yeah. No, it is. I mean, I think that's there's a great opportunity to blend the two.
Yeah.
Um, I think what independent restaurants sometimes lack is just the consistency and routine of corporate restaurants. And I think like if you apply those two things to every part of the business, you're gonna do more than okay. Um,
Totally.
but there's nothing to say that you don't have to fill out every little box. But can your stations be you know really beautiful? Is your mise en place perfect before service? Yes, absolutely. So I think there's yeah, definitely there's different ways of doing it, but you can definitely make it make it work. That blend I think is really good.
I tell you, lately I have been, as I continue down the road, I'm realizing I almost always now start, whether I plan to or not, I almost always end up in the first month of meeting these folks and getting to work with them, starting with time management.
Yeah,
It's like, huh, you're really good. You're a good cook, right?
yeah,
Like you're the chef and you're a really good cook. But damn it, you don't know how to manage your time that well, because you're getting stuck on all these things, and then you're
yeah,
like, I don't have any time. And it's like, okay, let's work on time management, and then we're gonna work on your prioritization skills, right? Like what can you give away? And
yeah,
then do you know how to delegate? Like God, if you could teach people those three things, like you could just start to move the needle like before you ever get to like heavy duty systems. you know.
No, for sure. I think when I got into corporate, probably the most important thing I learned was having a routine. You always knew what you were doing on any given day at any time, and it was always going to be something productive.
Yeah,
It
yeah,
was you just did it. You just knew what you should be doing, and it was easy to get out of time wasting conversations when you knew what you were supposed to be doing.
yeah. At noon, you're supposed to start this.
Yeah.
At 3 o'clock, you need to be doing this.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. And I think if yeah, in the company I was in, they had us sort of create like what our week should look like, and you were actually supposed to post it on the outside of your door so your sous chefs knew where you were too, and
Yeah.
and your GM knew where you were going to be, so that if every Thursday at 3 o'clock you were supposed to work on your schedule, then that's what you were doing, and
Yeah.
like stay away.
Yeah, and everybody had their own routine, and everybody knew what everybody else's routine was. So, you always knew what was going on,
I
and
mean,
the results just came, because
yeah,
people were doing what they were supposed to be doing.
right. But I think the lesson for me in that is, if you communicate what you're doing, then you have group accountability, and it's like, oh, wait, that's why that works. Okay. Right? Like everybody has their routine and they know what your routine is so that they can, interface. I think that was
Well,
the
at
other
the, at
part.
the end of the day, I like to say how you do one thing is how you do everything. And,
Yeah.
I think a routine is one of those things that if you do that well, there's a good certainty that you're going to be doing a bunch of other things well because you're planning rather than reacting, right?
Yeah. Yeah. The intentionality of it all, right?
Yeah.
Having knowing where you're going. I was just talking to somebody today about the difference between being reactive and being intentional,
Yeah.
and how if you just have some intention on one or two details, it's amazing what else falls in.
Yeah, remember that.
Yeah,
Definitely.
good stuff. Um, what are your I mean, what is it you're starting to see as you're out there in the world talking to restaurants? I mean, I love the concept of the in-house consultant with Cisco. Like, what are the things that those restaurants are struggling with?
Well, like I think what they think they're struggling with is always food cost and labor. Like that seemed to be what everybody thought they were. And the more I sort of dig into what I'm doing now and helping people, it actually those two things are uh, kind of less important than you think they are. Um, what I'm discovering is that productivity is probably the most important thing when it comes to restaurants. Like, how productive are your kitchens? How productive are your front of house? Um, Menu engineering is something that I don't think enough people talk about. Because if your menu's engineered, there's just so many benefits to that. Your sales will increase. Your prep time in the kitchen can come down. And so if we're talking about productivity first, then the basically the food cost percentage and the labor cost percentage are they just benefit from productivity. They'll,
Right.
they'll come down, and
Yeah.
and I think that's the better approach to running a restaurant than just trying to cut hours and raise menu prices.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's actually so cool for me, who's been in this industry for over 30 years, uh, to realize that there is a different way of doing it. And so I think that's pretty exciting, is because the corporations have actually mostly figured that out, but it's the independents that really need the help with that.
Yeah.
And that's who I want to help. I think there's just so much opportunity for independent restaurant owners to be doing way better and have their lives actually be way less stressful.
Totally. You mentioning menu engineering, and I was having a conversation recently, and I was telling somebody about that, and they're like, my food cost is pretty good. And I was like, you're not even understanding. Like, you're not even gonna scratch the surface.
Yeah,
I said, first of all, start by getting all your recipes consolidated and compiled and accurate, right? Like, make sure you're following the recipes, and then consistency gets better,
yeah,
right? And and if consistency is better, then you probably have less oh shit, which is going to take a percent or two off your food cost right off the bat.
yeah,
But the biggest value to having your menus written is that you can then cost them. And then if they're costed, then you can go into engineering. But I tell people, I'm like, until you get all of your recipes documented and costed, like you haven't even gotten into the gateway yet.
oh,
Right?
for sure.
Recipe costing is a gateway drug because all of a
Yeah,
sudden then you have this ability to like it's now on the map,
yeah,
right? It's otherwise you're just driving around in the desert, right?
absolutely. Yeah, and it's a big task costing your menu, but there are tools now that make it a lot easier.
Oh,
Um,
there's stunning
but
ways
yeah,
to do it.
without that costing, for sure. Like I'm working with a client right now, and waiting for his recipes to come my way. Like he's gonna send them to me, but I know that he doesn't have them all costed out, and so I can look at his sales mix and say, okay, well, you sell a lot of this and you sell a lot of that, but we don't actually know if those are the items that we really want you to be selling. Like, what if he's selling 10,000 units of an item that has terrible margin?
Right.
We don't know that, and
Yeah.
so yeah, we're gonna get his menu costed out for the first time, and it's probably gonna be a big eye opener.
I am right there with you. I have one chef and he told me he's like, "Oh, I've costed my menu." I'm like, cocktail napkins don't fucking count. He's like, well, it's a little better than that. I'm like, is it? Is it really? I'm
Yeah,
like, can you show me the cost of all of them? He's like, oh, I did the costing. I'm like, so you scrawled it out and you made sure that you weren't egregious. Cool. But let's get it so that we can look at it and just like you said, like be able to look and go, all right, this one sells 10,000 and your margin is really good on it or isn't great on it and you can make tweaks. And I mean, beyond that, like the next step after all of those things is to like start to really dig into where things are on the menu. That's the
yeah,
part that just blows my mind, right? Like, oh, make it the third item on the list, not the first, not the second. Make it the third and watch what happens, right? Put your chicken Alfredo in the third slot and watch your food costs go down.
yeah,
You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
it's going to be a great costed item, and you're going to sell a ton of them because, woohoo, chicken Alfredo,
yeah,
right? But it's that kind of stuff. Like, I worked for a guy, and he was so good at that. Like, I don't know where he learned it, but somebody had spent time to teach him, and he was always the guy to like like kind of he's like kill this item, and kill this item, and now we have space, and he put a box in the middle, and then like just throw the like high margin items in there and just go.
yeah. It's amazing, right? And I think what the good thing that corporate restaurants have done is they've kind of reinvented the restaurant uh, operation, and because they're always looking to make more money, and
Totally.
they have a lot of different a lot of talent, in these corporations, and they have the ability to just really think everything through, and
Hmm.
without that you can't, like, you always got to reinvent uh what you're doing. I think in
Yeah.
restaurants, like, the good thing about restaurants, especially small restaurants, is the ability to pivot really quickly.
Yeah.
A small restaurant can change its menu pretty quickly, if it's not working. um,
Yeah.
well, yeah, yeah, it's fun. That's the fun part of operations, is when you can find new ways of doing things, and when you start to see results, it's great.
Yeah, there's nothing better to me than working with an operator, whether it's the owner or the GM or the chef, and just getting them to see something new, like that aha light bulb that pops. There's just nothing better than that. I, they're like, I never thought about it that way. I was talking to one guy and I was like, how often are you teaching? He's like, oh, I don't have time to teach. I'm like, you are so backwards right now. If you taught one thing a day, you eventually could then like give that task to somebody and then you wouldn't have to do it every day. And he's like, oh, I never thought about that. I'm like, no, because you're too busy running. Again, you're too busy doing donuts in the desert, just spinning in circles, running, and you're going fast, but are you making any headway or progress? So
Yeah, for sure.
I love it. The other part about corporate restaurants is somebody said to me, he said, of course corporate restaurants move the needle. And I said, what do you mean? He goes, if you have 100 restaurants, you got 100 chances to fuck it up and learn. And I went, oh, okay. So it's
That makes
that,
a lot
right?
of sense. Yeah,
Yeah, like you got 100 different people like field testing something for you,
yeah,
whether or not you're calling it a field test. Like, oh,
yeah.
iteration happens quick when you go, oh, data, got it, and you just
Yeah,
move.
that's actually a great point, Simon. Is there's also comparison
Yeah,
between each location, and that tells you a lot. Like, why are these people doing so much better than these people?
yeah,
That's a huge one.
yeah. I mean, I worked for a 7 unit company, and for about a year, I screamed cross-pollination, and everybody's kind of siloed. All 7 restaurants sort of did their own thing, and then we started having chef meetings where we brought all 7 chefs on to a Zoom call, and we just would spend a half an hour, and the last 15 minutes of every call was like, "What do you guys want to talk about?"
Yeah,
And like one guy would go, oh, I'm struggling with this, and then maybe one of the veterans in the company would go, "Oh, this is how you do that. Let's talk afterwards." And they ended up sort of buddying up, right? And so all of a sudden you have like you got junior over here and you got senior over there, and they're talking to each other. And now, the senior guy, he's struggling with people, and the junior guy's like, just tell him like this. This is what the young people want to hear,
yeah,
and all of a sudden it was like, oh. So yeah, you're right. Comparison, but also like there I think when leveraged correctly, the community of a corporate team is pretty special.
yeah. No, absolutely.
Well, awesome. We covered a little bit of ground there, buddy.
Yeah, we
Right?
did. Yeah,
We
that was.
got from Vancouver to Calgary to corporate restaurants and mom and pop restaurants. Productivity. I love the concept that food cost and labor cost could almost be a symptom of good or bad productivity.
Yeah,
Like that's a relationship that more people need to think about for
yeah.
sure.
And, that's actually where I start with my clients, because most people haven't thought about looking at it that way. Um,
Uh,
even
Covers per labor hour, sales per
yeah,
labor hour.
it's actually crazy. And the 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 small amount that you need to move the needle to actually increase those or decrease those percentages.
Yeah,
You can
yeah.
raise your sales or covers by 5%, uh, and it can bring your labor down 2-3 points.
Totally. I think the other one for me is like understanding what happens when you're like, and this is air quotes, too productive, right?
Yeah,
Like the damage that you're doing to your team when like those numbers go too high.
yeah,
Like
no,
that was
totally.
what I never thought about for years, and then in the last couple, it's like, oh, I was always just taught to drive those. If I looked at productivity, it was always to drive that number up.
Yeah,
It was never, oh, beyond this point is like a bad zone.
yeah. Yeah, I get the question sometimes from clients. Well, what's the perfect productivity number? And I say, well, there isn't. It's all relative to your business. Um,
Right.
when we take your sales data and put it into the grinder and numbers pop out, we'll start to see patterns, and and that's basically, we'll figure out what your number is. But there
Right.
can be numbers that are too low and too high. And so interesting that we're going down this path of productivity, because productivity can also be really tightly tied with staff retention.
Absolutely.
So, how do your servers have like 10 table sections, or do they have 5 table sections? Do they have time to, make the guest experience incredible? Do they have the time to sell that second bottle of wine? And then productivity in the kitchen too, like your menu design, like what does the prep day look like? What does the execution online look like of your menu items? We've all been there where you're just like, as a server, you're just hanging on, or as a cook, you're just like barely hanging on, and trying to get your prep done every day. And is that fun? Not always. And it's actually crazy how quickly you can change the experience of your employees when they come in every day, just by focusing on productivity numbers and menu engineering,
Totally.
like that.
I mean, I like to ask people, I'm like, so do you think that a cook that is so stressed out that like he has to drink half a bottle of something caustic
Yeah,
at night, do you
yeah,
really think that making that person more stressed out is making them produce better food?
yeah.
And it's like, huh. Oh yeah, I never thought about that. Yeah, you're damn right you never thought about it. Neither has anybody else.
No. Well, and remember one of our consultant friends uh, was, I saw one of her posts. Um, was it Emily? I think so.
Kimberly, yeah.
Yeah, Kimberly, that's right. Sorry, she was saying that it costs companies, or what was it? Sorry, let's get this right. The turnover rates were 75 to 100% or something like that in restaurants, and the cost to those restaurants, the cost of retention is something that people don't think about.
Yeah,
And so, like, if we're using productivity numbers to impact retention, and your retention is improving, your all that money for training and everything is just going down to the bottom line.
absolutely.
Yeah,
I mean, I've done some, some cocktail napkin like guessing around what it costs if you pay an executive chef, say $80,000 a year. What does it cost if you lose that chef and then it takes you 4 months to replace them,
yeah,
right? Because it's not easy to find a good chef,
no,
right? And it's like sometimes I really think that with loss of productivity and loss of vision, that replacement cost can be 50 or 60 grand
oh, for sure.
on an
Yeah,
$80,000
potentially.
chef,
Yeah,
right? And that's if you get them replaced in 6 months,
yeah,
replaced and trained in 6 months. And if it lasts longer, and I've seen it happen, we've all seen it happen. Like the chef leaves because they're tired and burnt out, and then you hire somebody who's not qualified or not as qualified, and it's this like slippery slope of just money down the drain,
yeah,
you know. That's where I come in. I try to be like the chef's older brother sometimes. And I'm just like, here, let's work on your time management, and you're going to be able to do a job that is maybe a little bit really out of your league. But if you
yeah,
employ some strategy to it and you're intentional, like you can make up for a whole lot of talent with
for sure.
systems.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
So all right, man. Thank you so much for playing and coming and hanging out in my sandbox for a minute.
yeah,
I really appreciate it. I'm going to make sure that in the show notes that everybody can find you. I know you're on LinkedIn a fair bit, and so we'll get that on there. And any website information, we'll have it for all of you out there. You can find me at Culinary Mechanic. On YouTube, wherever you consume your podcasts. Please like, follow, subscribe, and leave me a 5-star review because every time we get one of those, life gets just a little bit better, and I get to do this a little bit longer, and I appreciate it. So, to all you out there, I'll catch you on the flip side. Guy, I'll catch you next time.
Hey, thanks a lot, Simon.
Yeah,
Appreciate
man.
you inviting me.
Absolutely.